The Russian Federation will have to wind down the war against Ukraine in the near future without achieving victory. Because of this, the country will face a severe post-war crisis. Russian ultra-patriot and former State Duma deputy, retired Colonel Viktor Alksnis, writes about this in his blog on Telegram. He is confident that after the inauguration of President-elect Donald Trump in the United States, the Russian war against Ukraine will be frozen along the front lines. The majority of countries in the world want the war to end, including our friendly countries, China and India. We will not be able to resist this majority alone. And despite all our statements that all the goals of the SVO will be achieved and victory in Ukraine will be achieved, in reality, there is no one and nothing to achieve this. For the first time in over 100 years, we are in for a severe military defeat with the gravest consequences. Alksnis wrote, he specified that propaganda will present the end of the war as a victory, which most citizens of the country will believe and rejoice in. However, the consequences will not be long in coming. We are facing difficult times and we need to be prepared for them, wrote the Z-patriot. Political strategist Abbas Galiamov, who in the past worked as a speechwriter for Vladimir Putin, also predicts an acute post-war crisis in Russia. He warned that the myth of a non-existent victory that the Kremlin will present to Russians will quickly collapse, and Russian citizens will be confronted with an unpleasant reality. When the heads sober up, it will dawn on them that no denazification has happened and there is a problem with demilitarization. Never before has the Ukrainian army been as armed as it is now, the expert wrote in his column for the resource Tochka. In his opinion, economic problems, which will not go away after the war and will affect the standard of living, will also have a strong impact on the mood of Russians. All this, Galiamov believes, will lead to a sharp drop in the ratings of the Putin regime. The Ukrainian armed forces have tied down about 50,000 Russian soldiers in the Kursk region of the Russian Federation and are continuing to destroy them vigorously. One of the areas there has already turned into a road of death for the Russians. This was reported by military expert Reserve Colonel of the Ukrainian Armed Forces Roman Svitan, Channel 24 reports. According to him, the highway leading to the village of Lyubimovka can be called a one-way road for Russian military personnel in the Kursk region. It is under constant fire control from the flanks. The Russians are trying to cut one of the main supply lines of our northern group on this bridgehead and are falling into a trap. We have a lot of experience there. The defense forces are simply waiting for the enemy to come into their hands, the expert noted. At the same time, as he added, Russians are afraid to leave the road because they know that everything around is mined. This is the road between the settlements of Snagost, Zelenyi, Shliak. Its length is 14 kilometers. The Russians call the road of death because Ukrainian defenders destroyed dozens of Russian vehicles there. This path is covered with destroyed enemy equipment, a burnt-out trail left by the enemy in defeat. Paratroopers and other units of the armed forces of Ukraine systematically destroyed enemy military equipment, leaving only ashes and debris. The largest losses of equipment were suffered by the infamous Russian 155th Marine Brigade. The Russians lost millions of dollars worth of equipment on this road. Among the destroyed vehicles are tanks, including T-72, BMD-1, airborne fighting vehicle, BM-3, BMD-4, BMP-2, infantry fighting vehicles, Akhmat fighting vehicle, BTR-82A, armored personnel carrier, Tiger fighting vehicle, MT-LB motorized ski. Let us recall that the New York Times praised the holding of Russian territory in the Kursk region as a positive moment for Kiev. Although Russia has managed to retake at least a third of the territory in the Kursk region in a few months, recent counterattacks aimed at displacing Ukrainian troops have not made significant progress. Since early August, Ukrainian soldiers have been conducting an operation in the Kursk region. Dozens of settlements are under Ukrainian control. President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenski, said that a buffer zone had been created on Russian territory. Russians are trying to regain their territories and are conducting offensive operations. According to RBC Ukraine's sources, the Kremlin has postponed the order to push the Ukrainian armed forces out of the Kursk region, with the new date set for February the 1st, 2025. According to intelligence reports, Russia will send DPRK troops to the Kursk region to try to push back Ukrainian forces. Syrian insurgents captured 4 new towns early Tuesday, bringing them closer to the central city of Hama, opposition activists said, while government forces retook some territory they lost last week. The capture of the towns is the latest in the push by insurgents led by the Salafi Jihadi Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, as well as Turkey-backed opposition fighters. Insurgents now are about 10 kilometers, 6 miles, from Hama, the country's 4th largest city. The latest push is part of a wide offensive by forces opposed to Syrian President Bashar Assad that over the past days has captured large parts of the northern city of Aleppo, Syria's largest, as well as towns and villages in southern parts of the northwestern Idlib province. The insurgents' military operations administration said gunmen killed 50 government forces as they captured the central towns of Halfaya, Taibat, Al-Imam, Mardis, and Soran. The British-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights and opposition war monitor confirmed that the towns were taken. The pro-government Dama Post media outlet reported intense clashes in and around the towns, adding that Syrian troops are firing artillery shells at insurgents in the area. State media reported intense airstrikes by Syrian and Russian air forces in the area. Both Observatory and pro-government media outlets reported that Syrian government forces on Tuesday captured the village of Hanassa days after losing it. Hanassa sits on one of the roads that lead to Aleppo. The long war between Assad and his foreign backers and the array of armed opposition forces seeking his overthrow has killed an estimated 500,000 people over the past 13 years. To the east, the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces said in a statement that they captured 7 villages from pro-government fighters. Syrian state media, however, denied that the villages were captured by the US-backed SDF, saying that the attack was repelled. The villages are closer to a base housing US troops in the area that is close to Iraq. Also Tuesday, Hakan Fidan, the foreign minister of Turkey, which is a main backer of groups opposed to Assad, said the recent rapid advance by insurgents in Syria shows that the Syrian president must reconcile with his own people and hold talks with the opposition. Assad and officials in his government say all armed groups in opposition-held parts of Syria are terrorists and has rejected any political solution with them.